I'm grateful to serve at this pivotal and exciting time in the profession of pharmacy and to lead the pharmacy regulatory body, the Bahamas Pharmacy Council. The past year was filled with new horizons for our profession. The Bahamas won the bid to host the 2013 Commonwealth Pharmacists Conference, CPA, and the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists, CAP, when pharmacists of some 60 countries will assemble on our shores. Several Bahamians were elected to serve in leading offices in both CAP and CPA. A Bahamian student at the University of the West Indies was the recipient of the highest GPA award this past year. 14 Bahamians will graduate and obtain their degrees in pharmacy from the University of the West Indies, and by so doing will increase the number of pharmacists in country considerably. Upgrade in technology in the public sector is taking place, and healthy and productive dialogue among pharmacists relative to the National Prescription Drug Plan continues as we speak. In much the same vein, the Council continues to fulfill, refine, and redefine its mandate as matters unfold. The deeper we have dug in, the more complex our work became, and our scope revealed itself to be even more expansive. A firm foundation has been laid. The regulating of the legitimate entities in the business of pharmaceuticals, the licensed professionals that serve in the industry, clinicians, doctors, nurses, and pharmacists involved in the medication administration process are well established. The standards to which we have held licensed stakeholders meet international practice benchmark. The continuing education process and guidelines have been clearly delineated. Inspection of all pharmaceutical facilities is an ongoing work that has to be a perpetual exercise. We commend our licensed pharmacies and wholesalers for their compliance to the Act. The Council, following a well-developed strategic plan, must now move its attention to protect our borders with regard to medication entry and exit in our archipelagic nation. The eradication of illicit and illegal pharmacy practice is to be an immediate focal point of the board. The Council is deeply concerned with the number of complaints and concerns being received from our stakeholders regarding non-compliance to the Act by business operators not registered with the Council. These complaints have come from pharmacy professionals and the general public. Those who choose to encroach on the turf of this noble profession with disregard to the law and the impact to patient care must be stopped. The sale of prescription items with no oversight of a pharmacist is unacceptable. The black market sale of pharmaceuticals is an even more dangerous practice. Such practices by non-pharmacists will be dealt with forthwith and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We simply cannot ensure that our legitimate stakeholders adhere to the law of the land while non-contributors to the success of the profession maneuver freely without impunity. We vehemently suggest that such activities cease immediately. The compromise to patient care in such scenarios is precarious at best. The Act is very clear on requirements. Any business entity uncertain of the terms for operation should call the Council's office as soon as possible. The Act is available online for perusal. The outright schemes to sell prescription drugs, knowing that the acts are illegal, holds fines and imprisonment as penalty. We also encourage all wholesale distributors to ensure that they are satisfied that any establishment to which they sell meet the requirements of the law, even if they appear to be legitimate. There is a part for all of us to play. Should you be aware of anything untoward happening with regards to pharmaceutical sales, you are encouraged to inform the council verbally and then in writing. Being responsible for governance, the council will investigate and dismantle as a matter of urgency. Everyone, clinician or non-clinician alike, functioning in healthcare and the medication administration process must operate within the parameters of the Act and the limitations of their professional boundaries. The Council has been most reasonable at this juncture with ensuring that all with good intent have had adequate time to get their affairs in order. Everything we will accomplish and hope to achieve is dependent on your support and assistance. We implore you to continue to partner with us as we are here to serve and protect you, the general public. Thank you. Before we go on, let's just make sure that you're aware of the person sitting at the table. To my left is Miss Shirley Colleen Moore. Ms. Colleen Moore is the registrar of the council. To my right is Ms. Barbara Donathan, who is a member of the council, and she functions with several offices, being a part of a wholesale distributor, but is also the council's webmaster, and she does several other things for the council. And myself, I'm Philip Gray, the chairman of the council. Philip with one L and Gray with an A. I want to stress that we are particularly not talking about pharmacists in business. We're talking about side street sale of medications, meaning a person having a store and selling items that are prescription only. And or it has been brought to our attention, and we have several leads, I refer to them as black market, where there are illegal imports into the country of pharmaceuticals, and the sales are in various communities. In other words, you go to the person on the street and get a black and red pill for an infection, that kind of activity. And I want to warn the general public that that is extremely dangerous, because we have no idea, there's no control on the distributorship, the chain of distribution of such items. We have no idea of the origin. We do not know if those items are counterfeit, and we simply cannot regulate or control that kind of activity. We do not know, we can regulate it, but we certainly can't control those medications. If there's a recall, we don't know if they actually have the potency that they should have. And there have been several cases in counterfeit medication where the drugs have been laced with cement and other things. So you're putting yourself at danger. To save yourself a buck or two, and sometimes even sold at higher cost, but you put yourself at greater risk and cost because you may be getting something that is potentially lethal. I often use my coin definition definition of a drug, which is a drug is a poison in small doses. If used correctly, it will cure you. If used incorrectly, it may kill you. And with that in mind, it is important for the community to understand that you need to go to secure and the regulated licensed entities. There are legitimate wholesalers in country that have good control of the drugs that they bring in. They know from the point of origin to where they distribute to. There are any number of pharmacies in country that we have, and those are the places that you need to go. You have the right to go into a pharmacy and ask who is the pharmacist on duty, and their license would be displayed in a legitimate entity. All the registered pharmacies in the country will have their pharmacists and their licenses displayed. If you're going into a shop and you see that the person is unable to answer questions that you would have, and you ask about their license or who's the pharmacist on duty, and you see that they're dodging, chances are that something is amiss or untoward's going on. And we're encouraging our people, when you are investing in your health, to make sure that you go to the legitimate chains for products. Even with over-the-counter products, they sometimes can be contraindicated to the prescription items. And I give you a basic or good scenario. You're hypertensive or diabetic patient having a cold or cough. You need to consult with your pharmacist, and it's often good to get your medications like that, even if it's over the counter, from a pharmacy, because you can speak to them about their prescription items, and they can then tell you if it's contraindicated. In those two categories that I cited, a cough medication can sometimes have an active ingredient that may elevate pressure. And then, of course, because of some syrups, the sweetener in it may be bad for a diabetic. So you need to be informed by the professionals on the medication that you're using. So we just encourage the general public to be vigilant.
Mr. Gray, how many of these illegal pharmacies or operations are you aware of at this point as a council?
We've gotten several letters of complaint. We believe that some of them are all linked together, so we really want to do further investigation. And we're in the process of doing that and engaging the services, as we already have a partnership and relationship with the police force and customs. So we want to make sure that before we speak out a turn that we have all the leads and that the full investigation by the police is had, so that we can dismantle quickly before we speak to those specifics.
Have you pinpointed a specific prescription drug that seems to be targeted most here by these peddlers?
That would make our job really easy. Usually when this kind of thing is happening, there are several drugs that they're actually using or they're trying to distribute or dispense. And so you cannot pinpoint it to a single item. The matters that have been investigated and the police department have called us in have had sometimes as many as 50 items, 50 different types of drugs or more.
And what's the rule regarding like legitimate businesses that do decide to sell certain drugs? You know, like you go into a convenience store, for instance, and they'll have over-the-counter stuff. I mean, how's that all regulated?
There is no law that speaks against a convenience store today about over-the-counter medication. So that's okay. The issue is when you delve into an area where the substance needs to be controlled. And in some cases, it could be even schedule on narcotic items, which really needs to be managed well, because those types of items have a addictive tendency. So you want to make sure that there are certain guidelines being followed and they're properly profiled so that the pharmacist and physician in tandem can control the usage of strong medications. But like we said, there's so many drugs that can be contraindicated, so you need to make sure that it's being done in a professional environment that's computerized in this day and age, that keeps detailed records of what it is that you've been on for several years, so that you know if two items that you may possibly be taking at the same time could be contraindicated, and the pharmaceutical care or counseling the patient can be had.
Has the council dismantled any operations as yet, or is everything still in an investigative mode?
In our 2 years of operation, we have dismantled.
But how many? 1, 2, 3? Other than just the Viagra sellers?
Oh, more than that. More than that. Initially, we looked at entities that purported to themselves to be legitimate pharmacies, and in some cases we had to dismantle those. Now, it's not entities that would have been owned by pharmacists or true pharmacy professionals, but they would have purported themselves to be those. So those are the kinds of initiatives that we've been able to dismantle, and we've certainly been able to explore leads where we've heard that persons on the side of the street or otherwise have been selling medication.
Any of these matters have been prosecuted?
Once the matters of investigation and looking into the regulations and act is the council's function. Once we get beyond that point, those matters are then handled by the police force, and so they'll be able to best tell you where they are at with such entities.
Thank you.
But the council is of the opinion that at this juncture, anyone caught at this point is not with good intent, because we've been, over the last 2 years, in several opportunities in press meetings, with our infomercial that's been aired on several of the television stations. We've informed the public, so ignorance can no longer be an excuse. We deem it, if you continue to do practices that are untowards, it is with intent.
When did you find out about these when did these reports come in?
The thing is that that's a part of our function. So we would see this occasionally at all times. But as we have sensitized the professionals in the industry, so they've been more alert and they've been able to assist us more with information coming in. So it's been, in a lot of cases, the professionals, the pharmacists, wholesalers, etc., that have been giving us the information.
And I guess, seeing as how you've known about this for a while, what made you decide to, I guess, sort of go in and attack the thing?
It's not an attack.
Figured it.
What we've done, as I've indicated in the press release, is that we've been very strategic in using our blueprint in putting things in order. As you'd appreciate, this current council or board would be the first. And so we had to start from the ground up. There was no foundation other than, of course, the meat of things through the act. But we had to start from ordering furniture to putting everything in place. So we took on a strategic practice to make sure that there was absolute compliance, adherence, and knowledge for the persons in the profession, first of all, and then now we spread our borders and our wings further and our tentacles to make sure that everybody who falls under the act is operating as they should. That That means legal and illegal. So it's timing.
Mr. Gray, while you're here, can you give us an update on the National Prescription Drug Plan and how the pharmacies are coming along? Any kinks that still need to be worked out?
That's not a function of the council. The council is regulatory. What we do say is that we know that it is a very good scheme or initiative of the government, and we certainly endorse it. The pharmacy owners and the entities directly involved will have their discussions amongst themselves. So those sort of concerns have to really be directed towards either the National Insurance Board and or individual pharmacies, but we would be speaking out of turn to speak to any details.
Thank you.
Thank you all.